Hajj, the month wherein the arkan of Hajj are performed, and the month wherein there are 10 very special days or very special nights. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala mentions in the Quran وَالْفَجْرِ وَلَيَالٍ عَشْرٍ وَالشَّفْعِ وَالْوَتْرِ. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala swears by al-Fajr, the morning, وَلَيَالٍ عَشْرٍ, and the 10 nights. When someone swears by something, that is their way of expressing the importance and magnitude of the thing which they swear by. And because there is no one and nothing greater than Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, for us it is impermissible to swear by anybody other than Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. If we ever swear, we have to swear by Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala and never by anybody else, because no one else is worthy of being sworn by besides Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. But in the case of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, when He swears, because there's no one comparable to Him and nothing comparable to Him. So when He swears by things that He has created which have great importance and value. So when Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala swears by something, that is His way of indicating the importance of that thing. So Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is swearing by 10 nights. Now what are these 10 nights? The majority of scholars of the opinion that those 10 nights are the first 10 nights of Dhul Hijjah. The first 10 nights of Dhul Hijjah, which we are in right now. And there is a hadith of the Prophet ﷺ which supports this interpretation, and that is ما من أيام العمل الصالح فيهن خير أحب إلى الله من هذه الأيام العشر. There's no days wherein righteous deeds are more beloved to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala than these 10 days. So therefore, the most virtuous 10 days or the most virtuous 10 nights, even more virtuous than the last 10 nights or the last 10 days of Ramadan, or the first 10 days or the first 10 nights of Dhul Hijjah. And alhamdulillah, we are in those 10 days, mashallah. And because these 10 days are so virtuous, every deed that we do, the reward will be multiplied. So therefore, we should try to increase our good deeds. There are no specific good deeds, but good deeds in general. Whether that be fasting, whether that be praying salah, whether that be reading Quran, doing dhikr, going to the masjid, inviting people towards Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, teaching people deen, whatever deed it may be, if it is done in these first 10 days, in these first 10 nights, the reward will be multiplied. And amongst these 10 days, and many of the pious and many of the scholars, they have made it a habit that the first 9 days, because the 10th day is Yawm al-Eid, Eid al-Adha, and on the day of Eid it is forbidden to fast. Both the days of Eid, Eid al-Fitr and Eid al-Adha, as well as the 3 days after Eid al-Adha, which are known as Ayyam al-Tashriq, the 11th, 12th and 13th of Dhul-Hijjah. All these 5 days, it is forbidden to fast on them. So, when we say that fasting in the first 10 days, we are talking about the first 9 days. And this is something which is very virtuous, that we fast, especially if we cannot fast the first 9 days, at least we should fast on the 9th day, which is Yawm Arafah, which is a very, very important day and very virtuous day. And another very important aspect of the month of Dhul Hijjah is the day of Eid, Eid al-Adha. As we know in Islam, there are only two Eids. There are only two Eids in Islam. There's Eid al-Fitr, which is the first day of Shawwal, and Eid al-Adha, which is the 10th day of Dhul Hijjah, which we're in right now. And the significant action on the day of Eid al-Adha is that of Udhiyah, that of sacrifice. And the sacrifice is done in remembrance and commemoration of the sacrifice that was done by Ibrahim alayhi salam, our predecessor, our forefather in faith, Ibrahim alayhi salam, one of the earliest prophets and the father of many of the subsequent prophets. Ibrahim alayhi salam, the sacrifice that he did, this is something that is remembered and is commemorated when we celebrate Eid al-Adha. That Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala ordered Ibrahim alayhi salam to sacrifice his dear son Ismail alayhi salam, and he was willing and ready to comply with the order of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. And his son Ismail alayhi salam was willing and ready to comply with the order of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala and submit to the order of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala as well. So this teaches us something very important, and that is that we have to obey the commandments of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala in all circumstances and conditions. That we have to obey Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. The obedience of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is first and foremost. We don't need to understand why. This question doesn't relate to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. Why? We cannot ask Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala why. لا يسأل عما يفعل وهم يسألون. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala cannot be questioned. He cannot be challenged. No. We are the ones who will be questioned. We are the ones who will be interrogated. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala cannot be questioned or interrogated. Why did he tell us to do that? Or why did he tell us to do this? He's Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. He's alim al-ghaybi wa shahada. He's the one who knows what we see and we don't see. He's the knower of everything. And Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, He knows what's best for us. Wallahu ya'lamu wa antum la ta'lamun. Allah knows and you know not. There's many things which we not only don't know, but we are not capable of knowing. Our minds are not capable of understanding and even knowing many things. And that's something which is hard for us to understand, but that is the reality. So, therefore, we have to understand that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, when He orders us to do something, because if you think about Ibrahim alayhi salam being ordered to sacrifice his son, what is the logic and what is the reason behind that? When Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala orders us to pray 5 times salah, now we don't, the real reasoning and benefit of that we don't see, right? That's hidden. That Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala gives us our sustenance and He puts barakah in our rizq. These types of things we don't see, right? But we do see that, alhamdulillah, it is a way of disciplining ourselves. We do see that it's a way of remembering Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala throughout the different times of the day. We do see that it is a way of, physically exerting ourselves for the sake of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. We do see those aspects. But what is the reasoning and what is the logic behind sacrificing your own son? Slaughtering your own son. Right? But Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala ordered it and they were ready. They were ready to obey. Sami'na wa ata'na. Today, we think it is something very noble and is something very honorable to question and to try to understand. That is true to a certain extent. When it comes to worldly things, question all you want. When it comes to the people of this world, question all you want. We should not just be We should not just be blind followers of everything. Just take whatever we hear and just believe it. No, we do have to question things. But when it comes to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, there's no question. When it comes to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, what is Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala? Who does Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala praise? He doesn't praise the people who are ordered to do something and then they question, or ordered to do something and then they hesitate. No. الَّذِينَ قَالُوا سَمِعْنَا وَأَطَعْنَا. The people who say, we hear and we obey. We hear and we obey, that's it. End of story. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala told us to do something, that's it, we're going to do it. That is the quality that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala wants from us. And that is the quality of the true believers. And that is the quality which we should be developing on this occasion when we remember the sacrifice of Ibrahim alayhi salam. Now we know that in the end, Ibrahim alayhi salam didn't slaughter his son Ismail alayhi salam. That Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala was just testing him. And he replaced Ismail alayhi salam with a ram, and he sacrificed the ram instead. And in our case, just like Ibrahim alayhi salam sacrificed this animal, we also have been ordered to sacrifice an animal on the day of Eid al-Adha. And there are different opinions in the different schools of thought. There are different schools of thought in Islam, 4 different madahib, which are widely recognized and practiced upon for centuries. But according to the different madahib, there are different rulings. But I will speak from the standpoint of the Hanafi school of thought, at least, that doing the udhiyah is wajib. It is an obligation upon every person who is required to give sadaqatul fitr. Everyone who is required to give sadaqatul fitr on the occasion of Eid al-Fitr, they're also required to do udhiyah on the occasion of Eid al-Adha. Each individual. In some of the schools of thought, it is done on behalf of the whole entire household. But in the Hanafi school of thought specifically, it's done on behalf of the individual. But do not be confused, because on the occasion of Eid al-Fitr, the head of the household, the man of the house, he gives on his own behalf, he gives on behalf of his minor children and his wife, if she is not required to give on her own behalf. But when it comes to the udhiyah, that is not the case. When it comes to the udhiyah, you're not required to give on anyone else's behalf. So if you have minor children, you don't have to give on their behalf. If your children they're mature and they meet the requirements for if they are required to do the udhiyah, they have to do on their own behalf. So who are the people who are required? The people who have, in short, the people who have to give sadaqatul fitr are the people who have wealth currently in their possession, assets currently in their possession which are equivalent to the value of nisab. And depending on whether you go with the gold nisab or the silver nisab, you will get a different value, and you can consult with your local scholars for that, inshallah. But the point that I want to make is that it's very important that many people who don't realize it is an obligation for them, it is actually an obligation for them. Many people who we would consider poor, or they themselves consider themselves poor, according to the Sharia, according to Islam, they are not poor. And they are required to do the udhiyah. So that's something we have to be aware of. The udhiyah is to be done after performance of Salat al-Eid on the day of Eid, the 10th of Dhul Hijjah, all the way till the 12th of Dhul Hijjah. So the 10th, 11th, or 12th. Any one of these 3 days, the udhiyah can be done, the sacrifice can be done. Once again, this is according to the Hanafi madhab. There may be different opinions in the different schools of thought. And it is permissible to slaughter a goat or a sheep, which meets the age requirements, which may be subject to difference of opinion as well. And or a cow or camel. And when it comes to cows or camels, they can be shared between up to 7 people. So up to 7 people can share portions of a cow or a camel. They can be less than 7, of course, but they cannot be more than 7. And all of the shareholders have to have intention of udhiyah. It shouldn't be that some people have intention of udhiyah and some people just have intention of getting meat. That will not be acceptable. And amongst the other a'mal and activities of the Hajj are the takbirat al-tashriq, which have already begun. And there's a lot of confusion about these as well. And they start on Yawm Arafah, which is the 9th of the Hajj, which is today, after Salat al-Fajr. And they will continue all the way till Salat al-Asr of the 13th of the Hajj, which will be Tuesday. So every day, after every Salah, we will say out loud, the men as well as the women. The men as well as the women. Whether praying individually or praying in congregation, you will say immediately after the Salah, without doing anything else, without talking or anything, right after doing Salam, you will say Allahu Akbar, Allahu Akbar, La ilaha illallah, Allahu Akbar, Allahu Akbar, Walillahi alhamd. One time. And this is also subject to difference of opinion as well in different madahib. The wording of the takbirat may be different, as well as the count of the takbirat may be different. So inshallah we can consult with our local scholars for more details about that as well. But it's very important that we should do these takbirat. It is not something optional. It is not something which is extra. No, this is something which is required of us, inshallah. And we need to do that out loud. Inshallah, may Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala give us all the understanding, and inshallah enable us to spend this month in the most virtuous way possible, and to perform all of the rites and all of the a'mal and all of the deeds which are specific to this month, not as a ritual or not as a routine or a custom, but as something which is a sincere devotion to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala.
Allahu Akbar, Allahu Akbar, Allahu Akbar, Allahu Akbar. Ashhadu an la ilaha illallah. Ashhadu an la ilaha illallah. Ashhadu anna Muhammadan Rasulullah. Ashhadu anna Muhammadan Rasulullah. Hayya ala salah. Hayya ala salah. Hayya ala falah. Hayya ala falah. Allahu Akbar, Allahu Akbar. La ilaha illallah.
الحمد لله الذي جعل لكل أمة منسكا يذكر اسم الله على ما رزقهم من بهيمة الأنعام، ونشهد أن لا إله إلا الله وحده لا شريك له، ونشهد أن محمدا عبده ورسوله صلى الله عليه وعلى آله وصحبه وسلم. أما بعد، فقد جاء شهر مبارك، شهر ذو الحجة، الذي أقسم الله بلياليه العشر، حيث قال والفجر وليال عشر والشفع والوتر. وقال النبي صلى الله عليه وسلم في رواية عن البخاري: ما من أيام العمل الصالح فيهن أحب إلى الله من هذه الأيام العشرة. ومن أحكام هذا الشهر عن أم سلمة قالت قال رسول الله صلى الله عليه وسلم إذا دخل العشر وأراد بعضكم أن يضحي فلا يمس من شعره وبشره شيئا، رواه مسلم. ومنها يوم عيد الأضحى الذي قد شرعه الله لنا لنكبره على ما هدانا ولعلنا نشكره، وأوجب التضحية على كل مسلم حر عاقل موسر مقيم، والموسر الذي وجب عليه صدقة الفطر، يعني الذي هو مالك للنصاب حالا من أي مال كان زائدا عن ضروريات حياته، ويجزئ في الأضحية شاة عن فرد واحد وبقرة عن 7 أنفار. ووقت الأضحية ما بعد صلاة العيد إلى يوم 12 من ذي الحجة، ولا يجوز الصوم على يومي العيدين ولا أيام التشريق. قد أفلح من تزكى وذكر اسم ربه فصلى، إنا أعطيناك الكوثر فصل لربك وانحر. الحمد لله أستعينه وأستغفره ونعوذ بالله من شرور أنفسنا من يهده الله فلا مضل له ومن يضلل فلا هادي له، ونشهد أن لا إله إلا الله وحده لا شريك له، ونشهد أن محمدا عبده ورسوله أرسله بالحق بشيرا ونذيرا بين يدي الساعة. من يطع الله ورسوله فقد رشد، ومن يعص الله ورسوله فإنه لا يضر إلا نفسه ولا يضر الله شيئا. إن الله وملائكته يصلون على النبي، يا أيها الذين آمنوا صلوا عليه وسلموا تسليما. اللهم صل على محمد عبدك ورسولك، وصل على المؤمنين والمؤمنات والمسلمين والمسلمات، وبارك على محمد وأزواجه وذريته. إن الله يأمر بالعدل والإحسان وإيتاء ذي القربى وينهى عن الفحشاء والمنكر والبغي يعظكم لعلكم تذكرون. فاذكروني أذكركم واشكروا لي ولا تكفرون. صووا صفوفكم فإن تسوية الصفوف من إقامة الصلاة. Brothers, make sure your heels are lined up on the same line, shoulder to shoulder, fill in the gaps. Make sure the row in front of you is complete before starting a new row.
Allahu Akbar, Allahu Akbar, Allahu Akbar, Allahu Akbar. أشهد أن لا إله إلا الله، أشهد أن لا إله إلا الله، أشهد أن محمدا رسول الله، أشهد أن محمدا رسول الله. حي على الصلاة، حي على الصلاة، حي على الصلاة، حي على الصلاة. قد قامت الصلاة، قد قامت الصلاة. الله أكبر، الله أكبر، لا إله إلا الله.
الله أكبر.
اهدنا الصراط المستقيم صراط الذين أنعمت عليهم غير المغضوب عليهم ولا الضالين. سبح اسم ربك الأعلى الذي خلق فسوى والذي قدر فهدى والذي أخرج المرعى فجعله غثاء أحوى سنقرئك فلا تنسى إلا ما شاء الله إنه يعلم الجهر وما يخفى ونيسرك لليسرى فذكر إن نفعت الذكرى سيذكر من يخشى ويتجنبها الأشقى الذي يصلى النار الكبرى ثم لا يموت فيها ولا يحيا قد أفلح من تزكى وذكر اسم ربه فصلى بل تؤثرون الحياة الدنيا والآخرة خير وأبقى إن هذا لفي الصحف الأولى صحف إبراهيم وموسى. الله أكبر. الله لمن حمده. الله أكبر. الله أكبر. الله أكبر. الله أكبر. الحمد لله رب العالمين الرحمن الرحيم مالك يوم الدين إياك نعبد وإياك نستعين اهدنا الصراط المستقيم صراط الذين أنعمت عليهم غير المغضوب عليهم ولا الضالين. ألهاكم التكاثر حتى زرتم المقابر كلا سوف تعلمون ثم كلا سوف تعلمون كلا لو تعلمون علم اليقين لترون الجحيم ثم لترونها عين اليقين ثم لتسألن يومئذ عن النعيم. الله أكبر. سمع الله لمن حمده. الله أكبر. الله أكبر. الله أكبر. الله أكبر. السلام عليكم ورحمة الله. السلام عليكم ورحمة الله. الله أكبر الله أكبر. لا إله إلا الله والله أكبر الله أكبر ولله الحمد.
First of all, thank to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala for the khutbah. May Allah accept from Shaykh Bilal. If you have double park, please go outside and remove your car ASAP. And please do not block this main parking lot. Inshallah, Ikna is joining with IIT with us actually for Eid al-Adha on Saturday, July 9. We have made arrangement at the Lutheran Church. As usual, we make all the time over there. This church is a block from here on the north of Hariri. Inshallah, Shaykh Ahmed Umarji will lead the Eid prayer and perform the khutbah. Takbirat will start at 7:30 and Salah will be at 7:45 a.m. Inshallah, after the prayer, you can join us here at IIT main parking lot for a refreshment, and you can park your car at the rehab center. And Alhamdulillah, the neighbor allowed us to park over there for a couple of hours, so you can park at the rehab center. Jazakallah.
Job is on